It's time to take a station break. It's an FCC regulation. So pardon us just a moment for the call letters of our station. WRSU, New Brunswick, New Jersey. This is your station for music, for news and sports. Now we must pause for a moment, our call letters to report. WRSU,
Rutgers' own radio voice.
Your station for music and news and sports. For your listening pleasure, at work or at leisure, WRSU, New Brunswick, New Jersey. For the best in music throughout the day, there's just one place for your radio dial to stay. WRSU, New Brunswick, New Jersey.
The radio sound that's new. In 1962, it's WRSU. Man, it's really in the groove.
We got campus news and world news, too. We got special features just for you. Definition and Runaround Sue, classical jazz and the soft sounds, too. And the latest in sports. Sport. We put them all together in one great sound, 680 kilocycles spread it around, covers all of Rutgers and Douglas, too. It should be the sound that you listen to. It's collegiate, man.
We go to the movies to see the flicks.
We go to the beach to see the chicks.
We beat cool jazz to get our kicks, but we always get our record picks on grade 68. Who's got the hits? We've got the hits. We've got the hits to play on Radio 68.
All the music the greatest, latest, and swingin'est too. It's 6-8, hold it down, big sound in town. The sound around, the volume on SU.
Sound 66 on 680 Radio.
What's that?
Why, don't you know that's radio on grade 68?
Well, who am us anyway?
Us is WRSU in New Brunswick.
We're one of you. And you're one of us, I think.
Maybe.
I just love Tammy Wynette, and I just love WRSU FM in New Brunswick.
I'm gonna play it again.
You play that thing one more time and I'm gonna melt it down into hairspray.
WRSU-FM in New Brunswick, yeah!
WRSU FM New Brunswick, the source.
The radio sings to you. Radio loves you. Loves you. Radio really loves you. Memories on wax take you there. It'll get you everywhere. Radio
source for Central Jersey is WRSU FM, New Brunswick.
30 years on the banks, a look at the history of Radio Rutgers continues. This program is made possible by a grant from the Rutgers University Bookstore and the National Bank of New Jersey. Once again, here's Nat Shoehalter.
As you know, WRSU was a commercial radio station right up to the changeover to FM in 1974. Sometimes we amazed ourselves with the amount of business sense we had.
I've got one story that, while you search it out, Dick, doesn't have to do with local advertising, but Andy Hocker, who was my roommate and was sports director back in my junior and senior year, Steve and I both worked for him. As I mentioned before, we had done Rutgers hockey, and one year Andy Hocker got the idea, why don't we try to sell Rutgers hockey? And everybody, who's going to buy that? Well, he sent out 90, count them, 90 letters to potential advertisers. And God bless Miller High Life Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. They bought it for $345. And I remember Andy and I, we got the ET, the electrical transcription, which had Miller spots on it. And we used to have a big introduction to our games, saying, Miller High Life presents.
What a kick, huh?
Oh, it was fantastic, professional. Any rebroadcast of the play-by-play or any account of this game without the express consent of the Miller Brewing Company is prohibited. And we talk about professionalism. This added a touch of professionalism.
I know we tried to get money to broadcast Rutgers basketball games away.
Steve Weiner, Rutgers College class of '66.
But basketball games, when I first started, only the home games were broadcast, not the away games. And we tried to get money for these for the one-way telephone lines. And we finally did get some money. We got some money through Hess Oil, actually through someone who I think most everybody knows, Sonny Werblin, gave us $400 to broadcast away games, and we got our one-way phone lines, and we managed to scrounge up some money in this area to promote the games and offset some of the other expenses. And I remember doing commercials for Miller's on the Mall in East Brunswick, and doing those commercials quite frequently.
The following is intended as an historic perspective of the type of advertising that WRSU ran at one time.
Patty's restaurant is perhaps best known for its irresistible Italian dishes. But Patty's also has some other things we think might appeal to your good taste. As a matter of fact, we're sure of it. One of those things is succulent chopped sirloin steak with potatoes and vegetables for only $1.35, and it's the best in New Brunswick. You'll also enjoy Patty's roast beef and sensibly priced filet mignon. Try, too, Patty's charcoal broiled specialties, such as juicy sirloin steak or lobster tails. And don't forget the sandwiches at Patty's. They can only be described as real sandwiches. Whether you choose a delicious charcoal broiled hamburger, a turkey sandwich, or any one of the more than 20 kinds of sandwiches at Patty's, you'll agree they're great. Collegiately convenient at 37 Bartlett Street, just one block off College Avenue, Patty's is open daily from 11:30 in the morning until 1 a.m. with good things for that hollow feeling. But remember, they're closed all day Monday. That, of course, is the day that the folks at Patty's restaurant think up more ways to please the Rutgers man.
I found the rates, for instance, we had. This would be in the fall of 1963. You could buy a 1-minute spot on WRSU for $1.50. But this is one proviso. Commercial copy must comply with WRSU's truthful advertising policy.
What about multiples? What do they go for?
We had a whole schedule. We had different categories of time, just like a station, professional station would have now.
Freshmen, don't be caught unequipped. Get all required freshman attire, cap, tie, and name button at the Rutgers University Bookstore. It's located right next to the Commons and has everything you need for study, as well as a full line of Rutgers haberdashery and many items for relaxation, too. Open 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday this week and through September 23rd, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturdays. Remember, evenings are less crowded. At the Rutgers University Bookstore, your one-stop shop for all collegiate needs.
The only thing I really remember about our commercial policies and our attempts in advertising was we had a great scheme. Of course, we were AM radio only in those days, and we wanted to become legally incorporated so we could get an FM license. The university was very slow to go for the FM. And our great plan was this. We were going to this was actually acted on part way. We went to the dean of men, or whatever he was then, his name was Earl Clifford, and we pitched him on the idea that we had to become incorporated because we were going to do an advertising trade-out with a Volkswagen dealer in town for a Volkswagen van. And this was going to be used, among other things, to make sure students could get back to Douglas successfully, and various other major news events. And we had got so far as the trade-out was ready, we would give them spots and they would give us the van. And the deal fell through. So the first canceled the second. I think you're right.
The place went out of business.
If it wasn't out of business, it certainly went bankrupt. But one of our most important advertisers, our trade-outs, was with Vogel's record store on, I guess it was called Church Street. It was downtown. And you were talking about Music Strikes Back before. Music Strikes Back was made possible by this great breakthrough whereby we only had a certain amount of records we could get for free from the distributors. And so Music Strikes Back became a success because we cut this great trade-out with Vogel's where they would give us 3 45s a week in return for advertising.
The programming that sold the most amount of time on WRSU was for the longest time our sports coverage. WRSU covered all football games live, both home and away. Eventually, we even did play-by-play coverage of away basketball games. It wasn't always easy to broadcast play-by-play of games live, and sometimes we cheated, just a little bit.
We had very good, I think, sports play-by-play through the years. There was one sports play-by-play thing that I have to mention since it involves Roger. He and his colleague Andy Hocker were doing hockey, and lots of times it was, of course, tough to find a mid-game or between periods interview. You remember you interviewed the first Scotch hockey player?
Yeah, it was a visiting, it was actually from Britain. I didn't interview him, Andy did it, it was me.
That's right, it sounded very similar to you.
With a phony British accent.
Suspiciously like Roger.
We had a sports announcer who, listening to him one day, I think his name was Howie Berger, but I honestly don't know, and he's going along, blah, 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 sports this, sports that, and overseas and competition. Finnish high jumper, Jake Cohen today, and so-and-so, Feinberg, it was all his buddies. Instead of putting in the names he couldn't pronounce, it was all his friends from, I think it was Phi Ep. I don't know, you know? But it was fantastic.
Steve might remember this. This pertained to sports, and again, it was Andy and Hocker and I doing hockey. There was a fellow who was a star defenseman. His name was Bob Lang. And Bob Lang, you always count on Bob Lang for a couple of goals, plus playing very good defense. Well, one year, Bob Lang was on probation. But the coach needed him. So Bob Lang became Art Hopper, who was another player who was hurt. And I remember this story that the games were carried in the ledge at that time. Art Hopper was in the ledge and heard himself score a goal.
I never heard that.
There was also the time that we played the Princeton junior varsity hockey team. They came in without a roster and without numbers on their jersey, so we made up names, and we were trying to think of Princetonian-type names, and the one I remember was the goalie, Graham Flanders. We felt that sounded very Ivy League-ish, but this is the, and we were professional about it. We tried to carry it off as professionally as we could.
I guess during that era, I was at Rutgers, I guess it was 61 to 66, and I guess I recall some of the high spots and some of the low spots as far as Rutgers sports was concerned. My first year, I guess the high spot was the undefeated football season in 1961, and we taped the game and actually sold the tape. A couple of the other things I remember, I guess most of the time I was doing basketball play-by-play, and in the beginning of that era, it was probably the low spot in Rutgers basketball. I remember we'd hitch a ride with the basketball team on the team bus to go to away games like Lehigh and Lafayette.
Those were our big games then, too, by the way, Lehigh and Lafayette.
And I'd be sitting in the back of the bus with an engineer and maybe a color man and the rest of the team, and it was quite obvious the tension on the team. It really wasn't a team. We had some interesting times doing Rutgers basketball. We were plugged into the Lehigh scoreboard once, doing the post-game show, and some janitor turned off the power because obviously the game was over. So our post-game show never got on the air. I mean, all of a sudden, you know, we got back to New Brunswick, and what happened to the rest of the show? We just died right there.
Can I tell one more sports story? And again, it pertains to hockey, and again, how we were abused at that time. When the Rutgers Hockey Club is still a club. It is. I remember when we started doing the broadcast in '61, '62. They said within a couple of years it would gain varsity status. It never did. But we used to play at a place on Hamilton Boulevard in South Plainfield, which is now some kind of prefab shop called the South Plainfield Iceland. And most play-by-play people are set up at mid-court, behind home plate, at mid-ice. When it comes to hockey, we were set above one of the goals, about 10 feet above one of the goals. We were also in charge of the scoreboard, so whenever a goal was scored, we would announce it, and then we would take, a goal and put it up on the scoreboard. But it was also very dangerous, and those people who would be listening to a hockey game would hear someone, there's a mad rush down the ice, here comes a shot from the blue line, and then you'd hear someone in the background yell, fuck! And you'd hear a smash as the shot would come crashing into the scoreboard. We really took our lives into our hands. We were very concerned with doing the best job possible, even though we were a carrier current station. We could only be heard on campus, and yet we did our job as if we were reaching out to the entire world.
I would say probably our most popular programming, this is just gut reaction, I would have said would have been sports play-by-play myself.
Yeah,
now, I don't know. Do you think it's fair, Steve?
I think it is.
Did you get? What was your feedback on games you did from people?
Well, I used to. I remember after having done basketball for quite a long time, people used to come up to me and say, "Yeah, and I've heard your, the voice of Rutgers basketball," things like, which was something that I guess a disc jockey started. And I said, now we go down to the Rutgers gym and the voice of Rutgers basketball.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, WRSU is privileged at this time to take you down to the gym where Mr. Steve Weiner is on the floor with tonight's basketball game, Penn State versus Rutgers University. Come in, Steve Weiner.
Good evening, everyone. This is Steve Weiner, all set to bring you Rutgers basketball. This evening, speaking to you from the Rutgers gym for the final regular season game of the 1965-66 basketball season. And tonight, Rutgers with very formidable opposition in the persons of the Nittany Lions from University Park, Pennsylvania, Penn State University. Penn State coming into tonight's game with an 18-4 record and an invitation to the 1966 National Invitation Basketball Tournament. We might mention at this point, the Rutgers gym is completely packed, and you can hear the enthusiasm in the background. This evening also, the continuance of the Rutgers closed-circuit television as the game is being piped into the new gymnasium to our left. And from reports that we've had earlier in the evening, there's a very fine crowd there, and there are still seats available in the new gym to watch the ball game on TV.
Well, of course, this is the semi-final round of the NIT. Rutgers battling in their third game. In Rutgers opener, the Scarlet defeated Utah State 78-76. In the second game, the quarterfinals, Rutgers topped New Mexico 65-60. And Southern Illinois came into this tournament ranked as the top small college team. This game has a lot of interesting aspects to it from the Rutgers viewpoint. Bob Lloyd, of course, needs only 19 more points to become the 14th player in national college basketball history to have scored 2,000 or more points in a career. And in all likelihood, Bob will be able to get those 19 points in today's game. Rutgers has the ball, trailing by 3. Salvano inbounds it to Lloyd. Bobby Lloyd, who needs 1 point for 2,000, has been a little bit cold since he's made his last basket early in this half. Maybe pressing for that 2,000th point. Now Lloyd for Rutgers with Southern Illinois, 4 points. Lloyd over to Valvano. Valvano holding the ball outside. Back to Bobby Lloyd. To Rick Carley. Back to Lloyd. Lloyd's got it. Stops. Drives. Passes off into the corner to Jimmy Valvano. Back to Lloyd. Lloyd's got a jump shot from the foul line. And hits it. And that is Bob Lloyd's 2,000th point in the ball game. Bob Lloyd, the 14th player to score 2,000 in college history. It's 62 for Southern Illinois and 64 Rutgers. And you can hear the crowd going wild. Bob Lloyd finally getting his 2,000th point. That's 19 in the ball game for Lloyd.
As Rogers said earlier, WRSU has always been quick to serve the community during special events or crises. In 1968, the country went through a period of change. The Vietnam War was in full swing, civil rights became a major issue, and the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy took place. The desires for change took their toll on the Rutgers campus. There was a series of protests by black students demanding equal standards for admissions, among other things. The atmosphere on campus grew to require 3 special workshops and faculty meetings to discuss whether Rutgers should close for a period of 3 days. Here's a segment of WRSU's coverage of the day's events.
First and the most vocal was the one conducted in Scott 123 and involved the area of hostilities on and in the institution that is now known as Rutgers College. The opening statement concerned recent racist incidents and threw discussion to the floor.
These are things that are getting black people uptight on this campus. Happened just this evening, last evening at 4 a.m., a call was made to the black section and close the 8th floor that a group of white would come up to the section or either meet us on the corner of George Street and Bishop Place to have a pub. This sort of thing is not conducive, to an academic, sort of thing. We hope that today we may get programs implemented so that these sort of things will not have to happen on this campus. Because I believe if they continue to happen on this campus, I personally feel that this campus won't be here very long.
The third meeting involved admissions and financial aid and was conducted in Voorhees. In this session, there was reportedly an amount of progress completed. Here is that report.
Some of the things mentioned, I just want everybody to keep these things in mind, was an increase of the summer program for the black students from a 2-week program because they have said that it does not work. It is inefficient. Correct me as I go along with this if I say something that you didn't say. And these people should be given money to supplement them through because they're sacrificing summer jobs to come to these programs. An increase in the staff of the admissions office, and he admitted that there is no black person on the staff of college. Questioning of the standards using for accepting students now into Rutgers College. There was a mentioning of priorities of money being spent. In other words, the money is there, it can be spent on certain programs.
The final meeting was with the faculty. Unfortunately, Dean Grobman did not allow WRSU to cover this meeting on tape. But here is a report on what transpired. After the report, we had several interviews and discussions that came out of the meeting.
An emergency meeting of the Rutgers College faculty, called at the petition of more than 25 faculty members, was opened by a motion to close the meeting and remove the students. A majority of the approximately 250 faculty members present defeated the motion. With Dean Arnold Grobman presiding, they set out to discuss the reason and motivation for closing the college for 3 class days. Grobman said it was not an administrative decision, but a clear mandate from what he called proper college committees with elected support. Grobman characterized the 4 groups on campus as they appeared to him. The first he called the reformers, young men interested in improving and changing the university. He said they see many things wrong, among them the war and poverty, and I think the university curriculum is not relevant to the terrible social problems that exist. The second group, the revolutionaries, see the same problems, perhaps in more vivid terms, Grobman commented. They think the system's so rotten that it must be completely destroyed and rebuilt. He said they see the university as a soft place in which to start this reconstruction of society. The third group was classified as the cop-outs, and Grobman did not have too much to say about them. The fourth and final group Grobman saw as the black isolates. He said they were young men, often from ghettos, who came to a predominantly white campus and found difficulty in adjusting. He said they find no exposure to a proud heritage and strive for black identity. Grobman stressed that we must treat all 4 groups with extreme compassion because they are all human and the university might possibly learn something from their ideas. The dean ended his introductory remarks by saying, "We must let the heart influence us, but use our heads to make decisions." The history department, under Richard McCormick, presented a resolution supporting the decision to close school. WRSU managed to talk to Dean Crosby after the meeting. I asked him what he thought about that faculty meeting.
I think something constructive will come out of subsequent meetings of the faculty relating to the issues that are being discussed this weekend. In other words, I would be surprised if the Community Action Committee does not have some motions arising from the seminars and workshops to present to the faculty, as well as to present to other sources, Board of Governors and other people, within the near future.
This then was the situation on Rutgers College campus today. This is W.W. Groger speaking for himself, Charles Corcoran, Helen Rumsey, and Carol Lippert, and Greg Scott. This has been a WRSU News special production.
Shortly after, the Reverend Ralph Abernathy spoke at Rutgers, and WRSU broadcast the lecture live.
I'm indeed moved beyond words to adequately express my appreciation, and I am even on the brink of tears to be a guest lecturer as a part of your course, Life and Culture of Black People in the United States. My sincere appreciation stems out of the fact that Douglas College of this great university considered me for this task out of the ranks of so many distinguished black scholars, writers, politicians, etc. And then the tears all but flow from my eyes when I remember that after more than 3½ centuries, we still find it necessary to inform the nation of, interpret to the world, to clarify, even in many instances for the black man himself, and to analyze the life and culture of black people in these United States of America.
A year later, in 1969, things settled down a bit, and a little levity returned to the campus. If you were one of the many cramming for your final exams in 1969, you might have heard this helpful piece of information over WRSU.
Good morning, Rutgers student. You're listening to the 1969 spring semester exam schedule. Class hour exams are as follows. I, Tuesday, May 20th, 1 o'clock p.m. J, Saturday, May 17th, 1 o'clock p.m. K, Wednesday, May 28th, 1 o'clock p.m. L, Tuesday, May 27th, 8:30 a.m. And finally, M, Saturday, May 17th, 8:30 a.m. As usual, should you or any of your classmates fail the exams, WRSU will disavow any knowledge of your activities.
Also in 1969, a major event took place, which although it had little effect on our programming output, it did have a great effect on station personnel. We finally moved our studios from 12 College Avenue to the newly constructed Rutgers Student Center, where we're still located today. There weren't too many things that WRSU did live on a regular basis, but there was an annual tradition at Christmas time. Every year, Dr. Mason Gross, the president of the university, would read The Night Before Christmas at the Ledge, and of course, WRSU was there.
It was the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds while visions of sugar plums danced through their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. That's my favorite couplet in English, by the way. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his curses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name, now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in the twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was treading around down the chimney, St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held in his teeth, and the smoke had encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings. Then turned with a jerk and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Happy Christmas to all.
Even as he read the poem, President Gross knew that that was to be his last recital at the Ledge. On November 11th, 1971, Dr. Edward J. Blaustein was inaugurated as the 17th president of Rutgers. Let's listen to the WRSU special report from that day.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Morgan for WRSU News. After the presentation of the charter of the university to Dr. Blaustein by New Jersey Governor William Cahill, Blaustein was sworn into office by Chief Justice Joseph Weintraub.
Will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Edward J. Blaustein.
I, Edward J. Blaustein.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support.
That I will support.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
And that I will faithfully.
And that I will faithfully.
Discharge the duties of.
Discharge the duties of.
President of Rutgers, the State University.
President of Rutgers, the State University.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability. Congratulations. I want to speak today about the nature and goals of the university. Why do we gather in academic communities? My answer will seem too simple to many of you. The university is a place where reason resides. It is, in fact, the institutionalization of reason. To be sure, men and women in government and in business, in shops, in hospitals, undertake to think rationally about the issues before them. They explore alternative possibilities, examine the past for insight into what to expect in the future, attempt to put emotion and bias to one side, and in other ways apply systematic thought to the issues at hand. Reason is enlisted in each of these enterprises, but none of them embody it in the sense in which the university does. For in the university, reason is the very goal, rather than the mere instrument of the enterprise. Our purpose is not to teach subject matter, but to teach the modes of human reason. We must help our students discover how to come to know something, what it means to know something, and how one goes about knowing it. The object in undergraduate education is not to teach a variety of subjects, but to teach a variety of ways of knowing. In an age of greatly specialized learning, in a time when the range of knowledge is vast and the uses to which our community puts our learning is constantly subject to change, all we can hope to teach is how to know, how to cope with ignorance. For some 30 years, as a student and teacher of philosophy and law, and as a college administrator, I have pursued the path of reason. I come to Rutgers to continue that pursuit. Give me your faith, imagination, energy, and intelligence, and we shall together revive confidence in the House of Reason. Thank you.
There were basically two separate events today at the Rutgers gym, an inauguration end a demonstration. The ceremony of inauguration itself went basically without flaw, except for the 3 short interruptions by student groups. Basically, it seemed as if the students objected to 3 things: Dr. Blaustein's position on Route 18, the Livingston Daycare Center, and the cost of the ceremonies. On October 18th, President Blaustein announced that the university will support the Route 18 plan. He said that the plan must be altered as necessary to serve the safety, comfort, and health needs of local residents. Basically, Blaustein was accepting what has become known as the Livingston Graduate Student Plan, which recommends building the Route 18 extension right behind the 3 river dorms on the Rutgers campus and building a shield above it to protect the residents of the dorms from noise and air pollution caused by the roadway. Several groups, including the Rutgers Student Committee on Route 18, however, refused to accept the plan as adequate. Before the actual start of the ceremony, about 150 students, led by David Meiswinkle, gathered outside the gymnasium and leafleted those entering. But that was not all. At least half of them had admission tickets into the gym, and they gathered themselves in one corner of the balcony set on disturbing the ceremony. After the first incident of chanting through the national anthem, the program was stopped while University Provost Richard Schlater took the mic and read the university policy on disruption. After a second and third interruption, members of Campus Patrol moved in and started ejecting people. WRSU's Mark Greenberg was there, and here is his report.
Stop Route 18! Stop Route 18!
Because of repeated interruptions, the campus patrol has now moved into the gymnasium and is proceeding to go upstairs to the people who are demonstrating against the Route 18 proposal. President Blaustein has yet to speak or make a statement about the thing, but the patrol is moving in nonetheless. We'll get back to you in a little while to see what exactly the campus patrol's action would be. It seems that they're clearing out the demonstrators, but we've yet to get positive results.
The crowd outside the gymnasium grew to about 300 people. About 15 New Brunswick police officers, 9 in full riot gear, and about an equal number of campus patrolmen cornered off the gym entrance to prevent the entire crowd to re-enter. No further incidents were reported until the ceremony ended, and the police formed a human corridor from the gym doors to the street to let the inauguration guests pass. Immediately after the inaugural address, Archibald Alexander, chairman of the proceedings, was handed a letter signed by the Student Government Association, apologizing for the actions of the students and their president, and later this afternoon, meeting in an extraordinary special session, voted to censure David Meiswinkle for his supposed leadership of today's disruption. And so, although the actual ceremony is over, the controversy surrounding it will continue for a while. This is Barbara Morgan. Good night.
So far, we've been watching WRSU grow through the years, but all these events and broadcasts we've listened to were still at 680 on the AM band, and only to dormitories and fraternities on the Rutgers and Douglas campuses. Then, in 1974, the big dream came to a reality. WRSU was to become a full-fledged radio station with a frequency of 88.7 megahertz on the FM band. Papers and proposals were drawn up, submitted to the Federal Communications Commission, funding was obtained through a gift from the class of 1918, and construction began. Student engineers worked around the clock putting together the studios and consoles for the FM station, and on the programming end, decisions were being made as to how WRSU-FM, a non-commercial educational radio station, could best serve the community it was thrown into. The main force behind the construction of WRSU-FM was Richard Harvey, class of 74.
The paperwork and everything was about a year, and then the actual construction took about a year, a little more than a year. Yeah, ordered the stuff and had it start to arrive, and I had the unique distinction, I think, of being the first paid staff member for that summer under contract. And I spent the full summer here, maybe between 8 and 15 hours a day, and got some volunteer help from Bill and Joe Zamidi and some others. And we got the thing up, and the transport was running by the end of that summer, but we hadn't yet finished the testing. And I, at that point, was starting to fall way behind in classes. So Mark Harris did a lot of the testing work and got that done. And then we sent the application, and we got approval by telegram. And I think a week after we got the approval, or 5 days afterwards, we finally went on the air. But the stuff, by the end of that summer, everything was running. We had a long delay because of this Channel 6 problem. The FCC said, well, we can't give you a license unless you prove that you won't interfere with Channel 6. And then you say, well, how do you prove that? And it's not really that simple. You have to actually go out and put the transmitter up. So they did, Paul Godley, which were our consulting engineers who did the actual application for the engineering aspects, came up with a study, which they did in general about the problem, and sent to the FCC, and the FCC said, go ahead, but after you get the thing running, you have to prove to us that you don't interfere. So we did. We had a lot of the staff. I sat in class once and worked out this format, which looked just like a lab, an electrical engineering lab, as far as materials required, how to do this, how to do that. And we sent staff members out with those sheets, and they took a TV set, a DC to AC converter, a color TV, a black and white TV, and a mask with a big TV antenna. And they went on radial directions around the transmitter through towns and streets, set up the TV set and see if they can get Channel 6. Actually, we check to see if they can get anything, because if they can't get Channel 2 or Channel 4 or Channel 6, the test is meaningless. And we pretty much prove that where people live, if they have a adequate FM trap, which most TV sets are supposed to have in them, they won't get any interference in Channel 6. That went into the FCC along with all the test results, was about an inch thick, and Bob Berman Xeroxed it. And we sent it in, and the application was approved. When you're a student, you're treated differently than if you're a professional. And when I was doing all this FM work, I was working as an employee, essentially. And I would come along, I would call up, say, the FCC or some office in government and say, I'm calling from WRSU, a student radio station of Rutgers. And get very little response. So I dropped that, and from then on I was calling as Richard Harvey, representing the State University of New Jersey. That did well. There's a school, apparently, where they have hard of hearing children over at Piscataway, and they were using a little FM transmitter and little FM receivers for each kid on the hearing aid. So when the teacher spoke, they would hear directly from the teacher. And they were using a frequency close enough to the 88.7 that they were, when we were doing our test transmissions for the television interference, they were picking up those test transmissions. And we were using a tape cartridge, which I recorded one day, had 2 songs on it, and it just kept repeating the same 2 songs. And the story went that ended up in the New York Times summary page, was that the kids started tapping their feet and dancing around.
And the teacher didn't know what was going on.
Right.
Then on January 27th, 1974, at 8 o'clock in the evening, WRSU-FM signed on the air for the very first time with a 2-hour inaugural broadcast. Included in the ceremonies were Dr. Edward J. Blaustein and his wife. All the emotions and excitement that Charlie Brookwell and his group had felt in 1948 was beginning to be reborn again almost 26 years later.
Good evening. You're listening to WRSU-FM in New Brunswick. My name is Mark Greenberg. I'm the general manager of the station, and I'll be your host for this evening's program. And I'd like to tell you that you're currently listening to New Jersey's newest radio station. It is owned and operated by the students of Rutgers University and is committed to serving its students and the greater Central Jersey community. Tonight, as we here begin a new chapter in this station's broadcast history, we cannot help but recall the people who have worked here in the 26 years of the station's existence and recognize their contributions towards the effort of bringing this radio station to the air. If you've just tuned in, you are listening to the inaugural broadcast of WRSU-FM, the Rutgers University radio station, and we have with us tonight, and we're very pleased that he could stop by, Dr. Edward J. Blaustein, who is the president of Rutgers University, and we're just very glad you could come up this evening and share this event with us.
Delighted to be here with you, Mark. I just want to take a minute, if you have one, to congratulate you, the officers of WRSU, and all of the students who have worked so hard over, I know, a long period of time to bring this to fruition. I think it's an extraordinary job on the part of students to have accomplished what you've accomplished in this period of time. You're doing a great service, I think, to the people of the state of New Jersey and to the university. And I, as president of the university, just want to congratulate you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope this radio station will prove to be an asset to not only Rutgers University, but to the central New Jersey area. And we have had reports already tonight that we are being received about 30 miles from New Brunswick, down in the Middletown, New Jersey area. So it looks like our signal is very strong, and probably even a little stronger than we had expected. We were speaking to Dr. Blaustein about what the university really expected from or would like to see a student-run radio station, if there are any like special services that we might provide for the university or programs or anything of that nature.
Well, what I'd think you'd want to do for the university is pretty well what you want to do for yourselves. There are an extraordinary number of things going on in this university which are of general interest to the public of the state of New Jersey, and you now give us an outlet through which we can better serve the people in New Jersey. All the way from educational programming, where a given member of the faculty or a given member of the student body has a particular competence that would be helpful to the people of the state. Giving him airtime would advance the purposes of the university and advance the purposes of the station in serving the people of the state. One of the reasons I'm here tonight, because I so appreciate what you've done in putting this together, and it thrills me. I see, a lot of the seamy sides of student life and a lot of the rough sides and a lot of other things. It's thrilling, literally thrilling to me to see you bring off an operation like this, which satisfies you because it fulfills your need to exercise skills you have, but also does such a service to the people of the state.